It's not very often that a company that is well strapped for cash decides to put out a true vintage feel type sports car. Think what I have right here. This is the Alfa Romeo 4C, and it is probably one of the coolest Alfa Romeos ever because it calls back to their heritage as a racing company. And here's the thing about the 4C is that it is a true bona fide sports car and makes no compromises whatsoever, except for having a manual transmission, which in my opinion it really should have. But when it comes to everything else that makes a sports car a true sports car, think carbon tub, think lack of comfort features like power steering, think lack of a comfortable ride or lack of interior storage anywhere you look. This is a sports car that is built for a singular purpose, to be a sports car, to be something to drive on the weekend, something to take to the track. It is not meant to be driven every day. That is absolutely not part of the Alfa Romeo 4C. It couldn't be less dailyable if it didn't have tires. When the Alfa Romeo 4C came out, it competed with cars like the Porsche Cayman and the Jaguar F-Type, but it took a much more raw focus on the sports car formula. It's just something to get in and drive hard. So when it came to competing with the Porsche Cayman and the Jaguar F-Type, this car definitely won when it came to exterior styling. This thing is absolutely gorgeous. There's nothing better than an Alfa Romeo 4C to look at because it's low, it's wide, and it looks like a true baby Ferrari Italian sports car. It is one of the most beautiful cars to come out of the modern era, in my opinion. There isn't a single line on it that isn't perfectly correct. There isn't a single shape on it that's out of proportion. Everything about this car is exactly how you would want it to be as a little Italian sports car. But when it came to actual sports car stuff, it kind of fell on its face when it came to a couple things. First is the engine. Yes, it's a turbocharged 1.7 liter four-cylinder. The Cayman you could get with a Boxer 4 or a Boxer 6-cylinder. You could get a Cayman with lots of power, and you could get a Cayman with a 6-speed manual transmission. And while the Jaguar F-Type was front engine, which isn't exactly what you want for a true sports car, it was offered with a supercharged 5-liter V8, which of course sounds good to everybody. So the Alfa Romeo 4C definitely was in its own little niche spot of the market, and as a result, not many people bought them. But in my opinion, due to its rarity and its driving feel, its looks, and its whole ethos as a little red Italian sports car, out of the three, the F-Type, the Cayman, and the 4C, this is easily the coolest in my opinion. This is the one that if you ever see it at a light, you think, that guy is a true car enthusiast. He knows how to live. I'm going to take a picture of it. Whereas if you see a Porsche Cayman, you're probably thinking, that guy's probably on his way to the golf club to go yell at the underpaid attendant that works there. Or if you see a Jaguar F-Type, you're probably thinking, that guy is either on his way back from the repair shop or he's on his way back from his neighbor's house where he borrowed all of their paintings. The Alfa Romeo 4C obviously is the one that you want to be seen in. So with that being said, let's continue to take a review type tour of the 4C. Let's open the back here, and to do that, you go around to the driver's side, open the driver's door, look in the driver's side door jamb, and what you see is a little latch with a generic looking sports car label on it. Pull on that, it releases the back, and then all you're meant to do is come back here, lift it up, and get to work because it's time to fix your Alfa Romeo because it's broken down. You've got a little hood prop back here. And it's worth noting that I believe this is the first mid-engine car that I've ever reviewed, which is cool. And I'm happy that it's an Alfa Romeo 4C because it's nice and interesting. So what we have back here, 1.7 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, which develops 237 horsepower, which isn't a lot. A 2004 Subaru WRX only develops 10 horsepower less than this. But what this car has up its sleeve is a super lightweight platform. Again, it is fully carbon tub with aluminum subframes, which means it's very light. The carbon tub itself only weighs about 140 pounds. So of course, the whole formula of this car is lightweight, and that's one of the reasons why they didn't fit a real big engine up here. Like I said, the Porsche Cayman was offered with a flat 6. That's what the Cayman and Boxster, pretty much all sports car Porsches are known for. But Alfa Romeo wanted this car to be lightweight. That was the most important thing. So that's why they put a little 4-cylinder back here. But it is just a 4-cylinder. but it is a very energetic, very characterful four-cylinder, very burbly, very loud, very Italian. It's got that flair to it that you want. So yeah, small little four-cylinder is a bit of a letdown, but for a 1.7 liter four, it's about as good as it gets from an engine this size. It sends all of its power to the rear wheels only via a 6-speed dual clutch transmission, which, yeah, isn't a manual. It'd probably be more fun if it had a manual, but if you're not going to have a manual, a dual clutch is a worthy second option. And talking on practicality, there is a little bit of practicality back here. As you can see, a tiny little trunk because they had enough space for it. You get the impression that if there wasn't quite enough space, they wouldn't have given you one at all. So it's nice that they were able to find some space for a little bit of storage back here. And it's enough to fit your Alfa Romeo bag. That's the most storage that you get anywhere on the 4C pretty much. There's not a lot inside, and there's not a lot of comfort inside. So with that being said, let's close this back hatch right here and have a look inside the interior of the Alfa Romeo 4C. Now, as you can imagine, it's not the easiest to get in one of these because you have a huge, super wide door jamb right here. Doesn't come up super far, but it comes up far enough that it's a bit of a problem getting in. Very wide, as you'd expect for a special mid-engine sports car like the Alfa Romeo 4C. And the interior, the entire cabin is quite small. The seats are very close together and there's only barely enough room for me in here. So let's hop in, put one leg in first, pivot, lower yourself in. It's a bit easier to get into than something like a C4 Corvette, which is the only comparable type of car that I have reviewed on my channel. A bit easier to get in than that, but not that much easier. So once you get situated in here, you notice that as a 6'3" tall man, like I am, you have barely enough leg room, barely enough foot room, barely enough shoulder or head room. It's not super tight in here, but it's borderline tight in here. My left leg keeps bashing into the back end of this climate control panel right here. There's a bit of plastic that comes down below the dashboard that wraps around the climate control. As a passenger, you're going to be feeling that rubbing against your leg constantly. But you can remind yourself that your driver bought something special by looking at this panel right here that says 4C, has a little drawing of an Alfa Romeo 4C right there, which is nice. A little Italian flag underneath the launch edition label right there, which is cool. Another thing that you can look at is this individual plaque for the 4C launch edition, which says this one is number 283 out of 500. But when you sit down in here, there's not a single moment where you feel like you're in some regular car. Once again, there's not that much room to sit down or be comfortable in here. These seats are quite firm. They're not super comfortable, but they are decently supportive through turns and things. And everywhere you look, especially in the footwell, you just see carbon everywhere. There's also barely any carpet, and there's barely any interior insulation here. And to drive that point out of the park, if you look at the back of the brake pedal, you can see the brake booster just sitting in the cabin. Every other car makes an effort to hide things, hide bolts, hide wires, hide the steering rack, hide mechanical components. The Alfa Romeo 4C gives that entire idea a middle finger. It doesn't care about hiding things, because if you wanted things hidden, if you wanted things built properly and you wanted to be cocooned, there are other sports cars out there. But if you want a proper sports car and you don't want to be lying to yourself, then you get a 4C, because that is the truest definition, like I've said multiple times. We have manual climate control with air conditioning, I believe, which is a nice thing to see. I honestly wasn't expecting to find air conditioning in a car that's built to such a purpose like this. Air conditioning is a nice thing to have, that's for sure. You also have some buttons up here, one for your door locks, one for your heated mirrors, and these are just kind of blanks that are there for no obvious reason. Not sure what they're for. So let's move down to these 4 buttons on this carbon fiber panel in the center towards the front right here. This is your gear selector layout. So to put it into drive, there is no D button. That would be too obvious. You just press 1, because 1 means first gear, which is beautifully Italian that's there like that. R is reverse, obviously, N is neutral. And you have A/M, which is switching between automatic and manual mode for the transmission, which I guess is something that you definitely want in a car like this. You want to be able to shift it manually with these shift paddles, which don't feel awfully expensive. They feel kind of cheap, but they've got a nice little clicky tactile feel, so can't complain about it too much. And moving back, you have power mirror controls, your hazard button, which you're going to be using when it inevitably breaks down, and to the left, power window controls, and to the right, you have your drive modes, which are dynamic for D, N for natural, and A. Let's have a guess. Does A mean, oh, I don't know, automatic? Like it varies the drive mode depending on your driving style? No, all weather. It means all weather. Who is going to be driving this thing in all weather except for beautiful sunshine like we have today? I would never, ever, ever drive this thing in any sort of bad weather situation whatsoever. I don't know why they put all weather in, but if it works, then it works. If you can drive it in the snow in all weather mode, then I guess it's more practical than I took it for. So let's move from that over to the driver's side. You have a 2-spoke sporty steering wheel. It's nice and chunky as you'd expect and is pretty pleasant to hold at the performance driving position of 9 and 3 or 10 and 2 or whatever it is. I don't know what I'm talking about. But you have 2 shift paddles on the back that feel, like I said, a little cheap but not horrible. They've got a nice clicky feel to them. And in front of the driver, you have a digital gauge cluster that is mounted in this amazing carbon fiber pod instrument binnacle up there on the dashboard. It looks really cool, and as you're looking at your gauges, you're constantly reminded that you're in something special and purpose-built as a sports car because the gauges have a carbon fiber surround on them, which is super cool. So you have digital gauges and all the information that you'd really need, the minimum information that you need. It's just nice. It's a cool little carbon fiber panel thing that it's in. And I love the red stitching on the dashboard. I just love this entire interior because it just feels so special. The whole car feels special. The car looks special, it feels special, and it drives special. So with that being said, let's get behind the wheel and see what it's like. We're driving the Alfa Romeo 4C. Couple things to note right off the bat. Once again, no power steering, which honestly, this car is quite light, so the lack of power steering when you're stopped isn't a big deal if you're strong. But me, there's nothing really there. So yeah, I could imagine myself struggling, but maybe I need the workout. Power steering would have added weight and it would have added comfort. And in a 4C, those two things we can't have. So no power steering, and once again, dual clutch transmission, 6-speed dual clutch, which is similar to dual clutches in BMW M cars of the day, meaning to get it to go, there's no creep function, there's nothing like that. You kind of have to blip the throttle and it goes. And you look back behind you and you can see that the engine is behind you, which is super, super cool, but you can't really see what's actually behind the car very well. But again, that's comfort, that's practicality, that's not the 4C. There is quite a lot of noise in here. There's not a lot of insulation in this cabin, but you probably already noticed that was going to be the case when you got inside and looked at the driver's and passenger footwells. I see a lot of carbon, I see a lot of bolts, I see just a couple floor mats that were put in, and I mean, my dead pedal on the left here, this little dead pedal thing is just this metal piece that they stuck in because they thought Americans would whine and complain about that if they didn't put that in there. So that was not styled in very well, but again, it just helps remind you that you're in something really special. So I'm going to put it in dynamic mode, and that stiffens up the throttle response. And I gotta say, that engine is right behind you, and so is the turbo. And when you open it up, when you're sitting in the driver's seat, you can hear the turbo intake sound. That noise is so prevalent, so noticeable. And then when you lift off the throttle, let's see if we can get a little bit here. You get this amazing, beautiful blow-off noise. It's so great. And like I said, no sound insulation at all. It's quite noisy in here. I'm hearing a lot of wind noise, a lot of tire noise, but a lot of engine noise, a lot of intake sound and exhaust sound that's blended together in this amazing formula. It's like the best Italian spaghetti and the best Italian wine. Just I love the fact that it's stiff. I love the fact that it's loud. I love the fact that it's just not comfortable, because it helps it feel super special. And 237 horsepower, but it weighs as much as a shoe, so it just goes. And the car is so lightweight. 237 horsepower feels like 537 horsepower. It is not a slow car. It's got so much energy to it when you open it up. And it's struggling for grip. It's doing all the right little sports car things. It just feels so raw and so energetic. Another thing is, sitting in my driving position, I like to sit a little bit higher up and the steering wheel down, and the steering wheel rim manages to block pretty much the entire digital gauge cluster right here. So I have to do that to see anything, see if I'm breaking the speed limit or not. Coming down to the driving position and the feel that you get when you're sitting here, and the sound and the energy, it feels like a focused sports car, that's for sure. I gotta say also, this steering isn't very great because there's no power steering, which I would expect the benefit to make itself obvious as I'm driving it right now, which is a super connected feel to the front wheels, but I don't really get that. I don't really feel any connection to the front wheels at all. It feels quite stiff and dull, which is a bit unfortunate because that means it has the worst of having power steering, which is no feel in the steering wheel, and the worst of having no power steering, which is it's quite hard to turn the wheels. So let's do this again. I'm not sure if the microphone is picking up that blow-off noise, but man, it's such a good sound. Q50 Red Sport thinks that I want to race him, but I definitely don't. This thing is just really, really great to drive. It's hilarious. A lot of fun, not comfortable, not easy to live with, but it's a little Italian sports car in the best possible way. I am going to end that video there. I hope everybody enjoyed. I want you all to like, subscribe, do all the normal YouTube stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.